Hey there, how are ya? Welcome to the Fantasy FanReads podcast, where we gather as friends to chat about our shared love of all things reading. I'm Jess, an avid lifelong reader and lover of cozy conversations. So go ahead and grab yourself a cup of something wonderful and come on in. Today is a special Cup of Conversation solo episode where I'm going to dive into a variety of reading topics submitted by all of you. I've taken those topics, printed them on little slips of paper, and scrambled them up in my magical Fantasy FanReads mug. Whatever comes out of the mug is what I will discuss. Now, a quick heads up as we get started. This episode will be spoiler-free for any of the books that come up in my conversation topics. Also, Fantasy FanReads is the newest podcast in the Fantasy Fangirls Media Network, and as a new show, your support means the world. Please give us a follow at Fantasy FanReads on social media, rate and review the podcast, and spread the word to your friends. Plus, if you want to help support every show under the Fantasy Fangirls Media Network, you can join the Fantasy Fan Club for exclusive content, early access, and ad-free episodes, live Q&As, book club, private Discord, community events, and so much more. Go on over to fantasyfangirls.com/fanclub for more information about the Fantasy Fanatics and Deep Divers tiers and benefits where you get all show access. Now, normally on episodes that I record with other people, I ask them some get-to-know-you questions first. So let's go ahead and do a little myself getting to know myself. Okay, Self, what are you reading right now? Thank you so much for asking, Self. I'm in fact still reading the cinder block-sized book, The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. This book is kicking my rear, but I am determined to power through because I trust the Cosmere fans out there who say that there will be payoff. I'm also at the same time reading Direbound by Sable Sorensen, and I am hooked. I am about 25% of the way in. I read it on some recent plane rides, and I gotta know if these wolves are gonna warm up to any, I gotta know things, okay? So that's what I'm reading right now. Self, what do you like to drink? What's your favorite warm beverage? I could go for a warm beverage right now, Self, if you want to go ahead and grab it. Okay, I'm done with this bit where I pretend to talk to myself, but my favorite warm beverage is just definitely a cup of coffee. I love just plain coffee with maybe some vanilla flavored creamer. I do like my coffee on the sweeter side, but coffee all the way. If I could have that cup of coffee with any two book characters, oh my gosh, I would probably choose Lysandra from Throne of Glass. She is my girl. She is my ride or die. She saved that story in so many ways that I'm not going to tell you in case you haven't read it. And I would also want to be joined by Misha from the Crowns of Nyaxia series because I just relate to her so hard and she is a ray of sunshine. The question I always end with in this Get to Know You section is, how does reading bring you joy? And I don't even know that I can encapsulate my answer in any way that will then get us to the questions in the coffee mug. But I think ultimately reading brings me joy because it makes me feel less alone in this world. Even though reading can be a highly solo activity and a very individualized experience, it makes me feel connected to the author who wrote the story, the characters within the story, my friends or strangers who have also read the book, and that feeling like even though I am, a mere speck of dust on this giant planet we live on, but I'm not alone, is pretty cool. All right. Let's dive into these topics from the mug. Let's see what the people want to know. I didn't really think through if I could fit my paw down in this mug. Let's see. Here we go. Question 1. How, when I am deep diving a book, do I pick up on so much foreshadowing? This question must be coming from the people who watch the videos on my The Lost Books of Jess Instagram account, where I have made some quality guesses about the books that I have read. I gotta toot my own horn on that. How do I do it? Okay, I don't honestly know. I feel like I have a puzzle-solving brain. I always have. I love crossword puzzles, word puzzles, Sudokus, number puzzles, everything where you're trying to puzzle something out. Like even back when, do any of you remember elementary school getting those puzzles that were like a grid and then you got clues like Sally doesn't have a blue dress but her best friend does, and you had to like X off the things in the grid that were and were not true? Anyone else with this experience? Well, I still do those for fun. Okay, that's what I'm doing on the weekend. So logic is like the name of my game. And then when I'm reading, I try to put myself in an author's shoes, even though I'm not an author and would never claim to be, but I am obsessed with like, they wouldn't put these little details in books if they didn't matter. Like if a word is spelled weird or a word is repeated a lot or a character just suddenly acts a little bit different. I'm like, I gotta write that down because there's no way in the world that is there for no reason. A lot of times I just end up lucky though. I take those little breadcrumbs of things that I am convinced have to be there for a reason and turn them into something, and sometimes I end up on the right track. Sometimes I say things totally accidentally. I don't want to give away a spoiler for this book, but now I know why it was so funny when I was reading the Mistborn Era 1 trilogy, and I specifically said a word related to a character, and the internet went wild because I accidentally used a word that was going to be very important later. That was an accident. I had no idea. I don't know. So sometimes I just get lucky. Other times it's that puzzle solving brain. But I've always been an analytical reader. I don't often just read for vibes because even when I try to just be chill, I'm like, oh, okay, all right, the characters are bopping along, they're doing things. And then I'm like, but that name just came up again. And I take notes when I read also so that I can go back through my notes, you know? And it's not even annotating. I don't write in my books, by the way. You will find 0 annotations in the books themselves. I even forget to highlight in my Kindle, which is silly because that is not I don't know, but I have a notebook that I write things down in and I furiously try to flip back through to see if I can figure things out. So I don't know. It's the way my brain works and a little bit of luck at the same time. Are any of you out there analytical readers? I mean, sometimes I just want to be a passenger princess and just show up at the plot twist and be like, gosh darn it, I saw none of that coming. But most of the time I'm like, oh, see what you did here. There are a few that have walloped me. Hello, Metal Slinger, or anyone else get completely slapped sideways by that one? I had no clue. Upon a reread, I was like, I see what you did there. But on the first read, no way, ma'am. Absolutely not. So, I don't know. I'm a lucky analytical reader, I guess. All right, let's see what comes out of the mug next. How do I choose books is question number 2. That might be as messy of an answer as the first one. All right, I choose books in a variety of ways. Prior to social media existing in my life, really, I guess, I was very much a window shopper at the bookstore. Like I would fall for whatever they put on end displays, or if a book was on a special table. Like I am the queen of falling for that advertising. Like if Barnes and Noble put it front and center, I was like, well, take my money, I'll find out later. I would just go to the bookstore and buy random things. Or I had heard a friend talk about a book and I was like, well, I'm going to need that as well. I used to do the same thing all the time at my public library. My public library has this really cool set of displays when you walk into the adult section. One of them is for books that have been getting checked out very frequently. And I forget what it's titled, something like Readers Love These. And I would always search there because I'm like, if other people are checking it out, there must be something to it. And they have this other shelf called the Lucky Day display, and it's books that are really popular and hard to get at the library, but they had an extra copy and it was your lucky day that you were getting it. So I would always browse those 2 shelves figuring the library wasn't going to lead me astray. You know? And that's how I used to make my decisions before. Now that I have social media at my fingertips, I spend a lot of time seeing what other people are talking about, especially other readers that I vibe with, social media friends that I know have had similar opinions to myself, authors that I've befriended along the way, and I end up kind of curating my list that way. I have a really sad and scary TBR spreadsheet. Y'all, it is a feral wasteland. It started organized. I had intentions. There's a title column, an author column, if it's part of a series. And then I had a column where I could put read, coming up soon, not reading right now. I had these choices. Well, then it just got too much of a mess. It was a mess. It was a mess. So then I had to add a column called priority, high priority, medium priority, low priority. I'm just trying to figure out what to read next. It is, I don't know why I try to organize things on a list though, because then at the end of all of these things that I just told you, I am also a very afflicted mood reader. I will say I'm going to read things, like I'm laughing at that spreadsheet right now because I know things that are marked that I want to read next, and I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that because I don't feel like it. So it's a menu, not a schedule. You know, if I don't want an appetizer, I'm not going to get an appetizer. I do, though, definitely fall prey to hype. I want to be part of the hype. I want to know why people are excited about things, but I'm always like a few months behind the hype because I can't keep up and I can't read fast enough. There's also hyped things that I have never read because I just didn't want to. Like, I still have not read Onyx Storm. Ugh, I know, right? I have the copy on my shelf and I just cannot get myself in the mood to read it. So, I don't know, I window shop, I follow the hype, I make a list, and then I hope to be in the mood to read something. It's so bad. I don't know how to be a more organized mood reader. Like, how do you organize your mood? You don't. That's the whole point of a mood. I can't predict who I'm going to be a week from now. I think that's why it's killing me so much to be reading The Way of Kings is over 1,000 pages long. And I'm like, I'm never getting out. And my mood is shifted, but I have to know what happens. So that's how I ended up reading Direbound on the side of it, because I was like, I need something else going on. But that's another struggle I have as a reader also. I mean, I applaud all of you out there who are reading like 6 books at a time. You have an audiobook going, an ebook going, a physical book going, a buddy read, a book club. Girlfriend, how do you keep them all straight? I have no idea. 2 is my maximum. So I've hit my maximum. I have Way of Kings as a physical book, and I have Direbound on my Kindle. Past that, I've tried to audiobook. I'm in the middle of Quicksilver, the audiobook right now. My audiobook attention span, it's low. It's really low. I'll try to do even like mind-numbing activities while I'm listening, like I'm folding laundry or washing dishes, and all of a sudden I'm like, there's a pretty bird out that window. They're like burning metal in the book, and I have no idea. So I try to choose books strategically so that I can get to things I want, but follow chaos. The answer to that question could have just been chaos. That's all I've got. All right. Maybe the next question won't make me sound like such a weirdo. Let's see. Ooh, what books in my youth affected me the most? What was childhood reader Jess like? I love this question. Before I start this question, I need you to know that I am a hardcore millennial, and I feel like my reading was very much influenced by all of the things that millennial readers experienced. So my earliest reading memories definitely come from the Berenstain Bears picture books. My mom and I would go to the bookstore all the time and get one new one, and they were only like $1.99 a piece at the time for like, they were like these floppy picture books. I actually still have the entire collection of them in my son's room, and my mom and I would read them together every night. She wrote my name in the front of all of them, and like they're one of my most prized possessions. But that was super formative for me because that is the first time I remember going to a bookstore and picking out a new book and like that thrill that we were going to go home and read it that night. After I started to morph into someone who could read on my own, my mom and I really still had that attachment to reading together for a while, and we turned to the American Girl doll books. My grandma gifted me my first American Girl doll for Christmas one year. It was Felicity, who is the best, followed by Kirsten. I will not be taking any comments, concerns, questions, or arguments on that ranking. Thank you very much. But I had the little box sets of the books that went with each of the dolls. And once I could read, my mom and I would sit in bed together, and she would read a page and I would read a page. And that experience was super formative for me as well because I felt so successful as a reader. Like I could keep up with my mom and we could read together, and then slowly you start to pull away, and I was laying in bed and reading them on my own. And I distinctly remember, because I didn't have a TV in my bedroom until I was in middle school, So for all of those elementary school years, I would read before I went to sleep. And I had this little pink lamp by my bedside on a table, and I would turn it on and I would read until I was ready to fall asleep. And I think I reread those American Girl doll books until they were falling apart. They were so good to me at the time. I loved those stories. I felt seen. I loved the tidbits of history in them. I loved that I had this is where my trinket love began, right? Those American Girl dolls were book trinkets from the OG days. Gosh darn. But I was a reader for all of elementary school and middle school and high school. I mean, as my social life blossomed, my reading maybe fell off a little bit. Other formative books I can think of are Where the Red Fern Grows was the first book I remember heaving, sobbing at, and being really broken by a book, but also put back together at the same time and having to reflect on that. I loved the book Holes and Ringer. Oh, Goosebumps. I used to collect the Goosebump books, and I was horrified by them. I was very scared of the dark as a kid, and I have no idea why I latched onto the Goosebump books, but I was obsessed. Anything that was at the Scholastic Book Fair, remember? Your mom would give you $20 and be like, you better come home with a book and not just pencils and erasers and posters of a cat. But I did usually go buy books because I loved to read and collect. My grandma also gave me a bunch of the Boxcar Children and Little House on the Prairie books, and just books abounded. My family didn't always have a ton of money when I was growing up, so I wasn't somebody who always got things. I mean, we were fine, don't get me wrong, but books were something that were always a yes when I was growing up, getting new books and having new stories. And I so much appreciate that my mom and dad and grandparents and aunts and uncles did that for me, because I truly cherished those stories. Oh my gosh, I just thought of another one. Sideways Stories from Wayside School. Iconic. That book, oh my gosh, at my elementary school library, you had to get on a wait list to get that book. It was so popular. I feel like I should have copies of it now that I'm look at my trophy. Do you remember when I had to fight for you at the library? So good. As a teenager, I definitely moved into, again, being a millennial, I grew up in the Harry Potter generation. So waiting for each one of those new books to release was super, super formative for me. My friends and I all read them together, and we would stay up all night after every release and call each other in the morning and ask, what chapter are you on? How far did you make it? In college, that turned into Twilight. I discovered the Twilight series and was waiting for each of those new releases. So I just feel like I kind of went through each of those iconic phases of growing up in the 90s and early 2000s that so many of us went through, that definitely shaped my love of reading today. I definitely as a kid though did not think being a reader was cool. And I think that was a problem a lot of us had as well. I've talked to a lot of people who can relate to that. I wave my reader flag with pride at this point. I love that it is my number one hobby and the thing that I collect and the thing that I do. But as a kid, I don't think it was something I ran around being like, I'm a reader, look at my t-shirt with book characters on it. And I wish I had. If I could go back and tell childhood reader Jess something, it would be this is the best hobby you can feed into, because you're expanding your mind, you are going to make so many friends, you are learning so many things, and keep doing it. She didn't give up on reading, but I would have told her to be a little bit more proud of being a reader. Man, I want to go back to those Scholastic Book Fair days. Do any of you remember the little it felt like newspaper, the flyers that our teachers would give us? You could order things from Scholastic. You would turn in the little slip on the back of the flyer with a check from your parents, and then the books would get delivered to your teacher, and it was a holiday every single time. That was core elementary school memories for me. Next up, out of the cup. Oh, talk a little bit about the pressure to read around a busy lifestyle. That one hits me hard because it is hard. to not feel that pressure, especially when you exist in a world with social media that breeds so much comparison. New books are coming out at a speed at which no one can keep up with, which is amazing. And I am so glad that books are thriving and authors are publishing, and we have so many genres and resources at our fingertips, and books are more accessible than ever thanks to all the different ways we can get a hold of them. But what that leads to is you can't read everything. No matter how much all your friends are like, you have to read this, you have to read that, you're missing out, this is coming out, we're going to the release party, There's no way. There's no way, especially when so many of us also work or have kids or have other hobbies outside of reading. How do you fit it in? How do you prioritize? How do you not feel that pressure? And I think that what I try to tell myself is, as long as I am finding joy in the things that I am reading, that is the best I can do. There are always books that are going to get by me. There are always books that I cannot read, but I have to prioritize for myself which books are going to make me feel the most sad if I let them go. Because I find a lot of times things on my TBR are things I put on there because someone I respected kind of made me feel like I really needed to read it or I was missing out on something. And when I re-look at like the book blurb or things like that, I go, no, I'm actually okay. Like, I'm glad that book is out there for the people who will really enjoy it, but I don't need to read it because I have so many other things that are going on. And in that case, I'm going to admit it, there are times that I've just gone and read a summary of a book because I want to know what other people are talking about, and I know I won't have time to actually read it myself. I think that this is something we have to do all over our lives. We can't travel everywhere. We can't learn every hobby. We can't do every activity on top of everything else that we already do. And it's hard when we have constant access to watching people do things. And it's hard to not realize that everybody is out there leading a different life. Other people have different priorities, different times to accomplish things, and what the amount they are reading cannot always work for me and my brain and my life. I don't know that I necessarily avoid the pressure. Like, as I work my way through this answer, I think I feel it. And I have to sit with it sometimes and say, yeah, that's happening. Everybody is reading these books. Somebody read 100 books already this year and you've read 4. And I have to say, don't let that take away your joy. Because when reading becomes a job or a deadline or something that you are keeping up with just to match other people, I think you're missing out on the actual magic of picking up a story that someone else created and living in it for a while. I have to say that the speed is not going to get me that joy. And I hope that everybody else who's out there reading at whatever speed works for them is feeling that joy because they're doing it their way and I'm doing it mine. So I try to stay focused on the joy to release the pressure, if that makes any sense at all. All right, let's do a few more today. What do we got? How can reading get you out of a life slump? Oh, okay, that's a heavy one because I've recently very much experienced this. Over the last few years, I have been dealing a lot with my own personal struggles with anxiety. And a few years ago, I was in a major life slump for a variety of reasons. And I felt very stuck and very alone and very much like I didn't have anywhere to turn. And I turned to books. And I don't know that reading got me out of the life slump, but reading helped me clear my mind so that I could make better decisions about the life slump that I was in. So when I would read, I would get a chance to spend some time in a different world with different people, with different problems, watch how they were tackling them, the mental health struggles that some of those characters were going through. And sometimes I just got to watch, and other times it felt a little bit more like a mirror, like I was seeing myself in those characters, and it gave my brain the break it needed. And I think sometimes that's how reading can really help us. It gives our brains a break. week, which is a weird thing to say because we have to use our brains to read and interpret stories, but our brain is not in the high stakes situation of making decisions for ourselves. I don't feel that same anxiety when I'm reading about book characters because I know that their fate is already sealed, the decisions have been made, and I am kind of watching it progress like a movie. Not that I don't get emotional while I'm reading, but I don't have to sit there and decide what the character is going to do. I can just turn the page and the decision has been made for me. I think a lot of times life slumps can come from decision fatigue or feeling like we don't know which way to turn. So it's nice when we don't have to because we get to read for a little bit. I'd like to say that books solve my problems for me, but that would just be false because they don't. A lot of the books I read are problems that are nowhere adjacent to what I am dealing with, but they give me perspective on, as I was saying a little bit ago, how other people are solving their problems, how they are working through them, how these characters are leaning on each other sometimes reminds me to lean on my family and how they can help me through something. And it helps break out of the spiral that my brain is sometimes in. I think books can help you get out of a life slump also by what genre of book you pick to read. I know sometimes when I am feeling at my lowest, I need to pick something comedic or cozy, something where I know like nobody's going to perish and everybody's going to be happy at the end. Because when I'm in a life slump, admittedly, sometimes I don't feel like I'm going to have that happy ending that those characters are going to have. And I just want to cheer them on, like watching a Hallmark movie on TV. Our brains just need that break sometimes. Life is heavy and life is hard, and being an adult and being the like driver of the decisions of your life is exhausting. It is so hard to wake up every day, and just by waking up, your to-do list has 400 items on it just to exist. Right? You got to get your taxes done. You don't have any milk, so you got to figure that out. Then you got to go to work. And how are you going to get to your doctor's appointment when you also have this important meeting at work and your kids have basketball and then you never responded to that email? And it's never ending just by existing. Well, for a little bit, while you read, those things don't have to exist because something else exists. And you can come back to it. A lot of times in life, I think we feel like everything is a 5-alarm fire when it isn't, and reading gives our brains a chance to reset, prioritize, and take a break. At least that's what reading did for me at that time a few years ago when I was feeling really, really stuck. That's actually around when I started my bookish social media account because I was like, I want to connect with other people who are reading and I want to feel less alone. And so reading gave my brain that break and found a community for me. And I ended up getting through it in the end. I'm doing a heck of a lot better now, which is awesome. But I know life will throw me another valley like that. And I'm really glad that I have hobbies that give me a chance to reset and people to lean on. All right, Cup, I need a funny one after that heavy one. Let's see what the Cup has. Ooh, all right. What fantasy powers would I like to have? So many fantasy powers I would like to have. First of all, I want an animal sidekick that I can talk to in my brain. This seems to be pervasive in the fantasy world, and I don't even care I could be a magical groundhog as long as I can talk to it with my brain without my mouth. There is something about that is so cool to me. Okay, Jess and the Magical Groundhog is the next book someone needs to write. We are bonded, me and that groundhog. The second power I want to have is, I want to be able to like teleport in whatever way exists in the fantasy world that I live in. I think it would be so fun to be able to just like end up in new places. I don't want to fly. Okay, that's a no for me because I am afraid of heights. Deathly afraid of heights. I mean, like I could ride a roller coaster because I'm strapped in, but there is nothing like if you're flying, there's no. So I don't want wings. I don't want to fly. I want to teleport. I want to like blink and just like end up somewhere else with my magical groundhog that my brain is bonded to. His name is Barry. just so everybody knows. So Barry can teleport too, as long as he's with me. So we got Barry the magical groundhog and Jess, who can teleport her and Barry. And then clearly our other power is I want like preternatural speed. Okay, like those characters that when they're fighting, they're like the Flash. That's what I want. And Barry, he has preternatural speed too, because you would not suspect that of a groundhog. They're like furry ground potatoes, right? But Barry, he's going to throw you for a loop because we are both so fast. Like you can't catch us. Not only can we run, but we can teleport to different places. It's like in a blink of an eye, we are gone. I want all of those things. I don't know how they benefit me. I don't know what I'm fighting against. I don't know what world I live in, but it's Jess and Barry the magical groundhog versus whomever might be causing us problems. We will teleport to you. We will run away from you. I just realized that my magical powers are just to evade. I don't actually want to fight anyone, neither does Barry. We just want to get away, get back to our next snack. None of these involve being able to hurt anyone, being able to fight with weapons, being able to make like potions or poisons. We're just cutting out. You have fun fighting. Barry and I will be watching Netflix on the couch back at our secret lair. Good old Barry. Oh my gosh. Why would I pick a groundhog? Out of all of the creatures I could have, what is wrong with me? Not a dragon, not a wyvern, not some sort of like hawk or like fierce thing. I pick literally a furball that burrows in the ground. I should have known Barry and I would want to hide, because what do groundhogs do when you walk up to them? They run away. That's Barry and I, the escapees of the fantasy world. Ooh. Build my own found family from book characters. Oh my gosh. Okay. I feel like every found family has to have all the different types of people in it to like accomplish the jobs. And I would need some fighters because, as discussed, me and Barry the groundhog were not fighters. So I would have a couple scrappy people in my found family. First, Lysandra. Once her and I are done having coffee, as discussed earlier, she could be a member of my found family. We would have fabulous girls' nights, and then she would kick booty on the way out the door. The second person I would pick to make sure we were protected is Vin from Mistborn. Vin would ensure that our found family's lair was safe. Okay, she would lurk in the shadows, she would fling some coins, we would be set. So they would definitely be my found family. Ooh, we need comic relief. Okay, but not just comic relief that can't get anything done, like also powerful but funny. And I would have to pick Taryn from the Kindred's Curse saga because, I mean, if you've read those books, do you not love Taryn? Right? I mean, he has to come. Him and Lysandra, first of all, they would be like this. Okay, so he would thank me for that one. And he would make me giggle all ding dang day long. So Taryn can come. We need someone who's going to keep us like on track, you know? And I think for that person, I'm going to have to go back to Mistborn and I would pick Sazed. I think Sazed is an amazing character. I have like the utmost respect for his character. I think he's I want to sit down and have like a full philosophical dinner with him. So we could do that if he was in my found family and he would try to like herd us like kittens, you know? So he would definitely be there. We need a couple sidekicks. What sidekick characters would I pick? I want Kaz from the Spell Shop. Kaz would have to be in this found family with us. I mean, obviously my found family is going to have a massive library, so Kaz would have to organize the library for us. So he would be in our sidekick category. And I think, do I need another sidekick? I mean, Barry the groundhog, we can't leave Barry behind. Sarai. I'd have to bring Sarai the Gryvern from Kindred's Curse saga. I mean, amazing. I would find her an apple orchard. It would be a great time. This is my band. So we got Vin, Lysandra, Sazed, Kaz, Taryn, and Sarai. Jess, and Barry the magical groundhog. I mean, tell me we are not going to conquer the world. I didn't conquer anything, but I brought them all together. I'm the glue. That's what I am. Every found family has the glue that like keeps them together with like, joy and positivity. That's me. I got nothing to offer but baking you some bread, bringing Barry along, and hanging out. Where would our lair be? Ooh, I want our lair to be somewhere tropical. We have a beach hut. Yeah. Barry doesn't like it because he doesn't want to burrow in the sand. He doesn't like it when it gets in his fur. But the rest of us are having a great time. Can you picture Say Zed with like a pina colada? If you like pina coladas and getting caught in the rain. Say Zed, he would be living his best life taking a break. I honestly don't think my found family is going to have any problems. We're going to crush it. Nailed it. All right, we're going to do 2 more, and then we're going to wrap up today's cup of conversations. Let's see what comes out of the cup. Ooh, what are some reading moments that make you feel bouncy? Okay, I think there's kind of 2, and I want to try to say them without giving anything away, because I could name really specific ones from specific books, but I'm going to be less specific, okay? I'm not going to lie, this might not sound very cozy, but one of the moments in a book that always makes me feel bouncy is when the full, fat, evil, big, baddie, horrible character gets it. In whatever way they're gonna get it. All right, that is like you put the book down, give it a slow clap. It is so satisfying when the character that has just been so evil and ruining everyone's life finally so good. And authors are always so creative about how they're going to take that person down. And I don't know if I've read a book, like I'm trying to think off the top of my head, where like the big baddie gets away, really, right? I don't even think that's a spoiler because we expect it to happen. But even though we expect it to happen, I'm always like, yes. Now, there have been a couple books I've read where the character I assumed was the full fat evil big baddie wasn't as evil as I thought. Like that was part of the plot twist. But ultimately, I love it when they get what was coming to them. Okay? Don't let the door hit you on the way out. Usually they're not walking out, though, if you catch my drift. Another reading moment that makes me feel bouncy is when something I predicted is right. There is something so righteous about that moment when, like, multiple chapters ahead of time, you're like, that magical rock is going to be the key to teleport them to the other world. 10 chapters later, the rock is the key to teleportation, and you're just like, thank you. I would like to thank myself for making that prediction. When in reality, you should be thanking yourself for picking up on the foreshadowing the author put there, but that's neither here nor there. I just thank myself for being so intelligent. When I used to read a lot more romance books, not that there isn't romance in fantasy, but I used to read a lot more contemporary romance. The moment that made me feel bouncy was always the moment when whichever character didn't want to admit they were in love finally did. It was always one of them, right? It was always one of the 2 main characters who was like, I don't love them. Even though everything about them makes me feel giddy, I don't love them. When they would finally admit it, I was always like, look at you. Look at you admitting to the truth. You're in love. Those are my 3 bouncy moments. They hit me right in the feels every single time. All right. Last question from the cup for today. And then look there's so many questions in here. We'll be back. We'll be back for more cup of conversations. But the last one for today is, how does your own life impact what you read? I see we're going back to Serious Town for this last question. I think your own life impacts what you read immensely. There's no way it can't, because the life experiences that we have had always put a lens over how we are viewing things in a book. For example, if there is a character in a book who is acting in a certain way that reminds us of a person in our real life, that is always going to change how we view that character, because we have human experiences with someone similar. Or if we've been in a similar situation to a character, that is always going to affect us. Or Or vice versa. If we are reading about something that we have zero connection to at all, we are going to read it totally differently than someone who does identify with the situation that the characters are in. There is no way, in my opinion, to separate your own life from the books that you are reading. Even books that I have read at different ages in my life, I have read differently because of the life experiences that I have amassed prior to reading them. This always changes the way we view the events in the book, the empathy we're willing to have for different characters. I find myself to be a much more gracious reader at this point in my life because I've known so many people and been through things that even when I'm reading a book and a character is being terrible, I'm like, but what if there's a reason? Whereas like 10 years ago, I would have been like, down with them, they're the worst. I find myself reading things with a totally different lens just because I know that there's usually so much more to people than when I was like 22. I was like, nope. So it's just you bring your own life experiences. Being a parent has changed the way I read, especially when there are characters in books that are children. I'm always going to feel differently about those characters than prior to being a parent because I now insert my own child into like, oh my gosh, what if he was in this situation? What if this thing was happening to him? Life impacts our reading greatly, which is one of the reasons I wish I was more of a rereader because I wonder what I would get out of books that I had previously read now that I'm older and been through things, or even just different moods that you're in while reading can change things. I know I've talked to a lot of people who've started a book, put it down because it didn't feel right at the time, and like 2 months later pick it back up because maybe life isn't as heavy and they have the space to read it right now. It changes our perception of the stories greatly, especially when you consider authors put some of themselves into the stories that they write, experiences they have had, mental health struggles, people they have known. Life is part of stories, even though they are made up. Now, the last question I normally like to do in every episode where I'm interviewing someone is ask them a bit of a chaotic question. One that isn't about reading, but can spark a debate or just be a little bit silly. So of course I have one for myself, and of course my answer is going to be correct because there is no one here to tell me otherwise. But feel free to share your thoughts in the comments, especially if you don't agree with me. The chaos question I'm going to ask myself today is, should you put the cream in the mug first or the coffee in the mug first? Which comes first, the cream or the coffee? And my answer, maybe controversial take, is the cream goes in the mug first. It just does. Because then when you pour the coffee on top of it, it self-stirs and I don't have to get out a spoon. And before you come at me, before you even try to tell me, how do you know that was the right amount of cream? I use the same mug, the same cream, and the same coffee every morning. I can do it with my eyes closed. I can sense it. The cream going into the mug. I know it's going to be perfect every single time because I'm like a maestro of putting the cream in. Now, if I'm getting coffee out and about, like at a restaurant or something, no. Of course the coffee is going in first because that's what the waiter or waitress is going to do. But at home, cream first, always, no questions asked. And again, I don't see, is anyone else here? Oh, nope. So my answer must be correct. Well, a huge thank you to myself for deep diving into the cup of conversations today. I frankly could not have done it without myself. And thank you to all of you for coming in to join me as well. Hopefully you're off to find a great book to read and spread some reading joy. A quick reminder to go ahead and check out the Fantasy Fan Club in the link in the description. And if you're interested in checking out other shows in the network, be sure to give Fantasy FanFellas a try. It's a super fun podcast hosted by Hayden, producer of the Fantasy Fangirls, and Book Talk star Stephen Walker. It is so fun, and they have been deep diving Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn. Follow on Fantasy FanReads on social media, as well as me, your host, The Lost Books of Jess, on Instagram. This is also a new podcast, so please rate and review. It truly helps so much. And be sure to share this show with all your friends who love cozy. We'll see you again next time. Bye, everybody.